Hello, welcome to the Curiosity Show. I'm Shreyas and this is Amol. We'll be taking you to a voyage जहाँ पे we'll be talking about कि इंडिया में startups के बारे में क्या चल रहा है, why is something working, why is something not working. We'll try to analyze that. We'll try to explore some sectors जो अब तक maybe unexplored हैं, और we'll try to explore sectors like fintech जहाँ पे बहुत ही कुछ अच्छा हो रहा है these days. Hi Amol.
Hi Shreyash. How are you? How it's going?
Yeah, doing well, doing well. So, uh, yeah, let's begin, dude. So
Yeah.
हमने ये थीम ये रखा था इस पूरे चैनल का कि we'll be talking about how India is going towards something which is we don't even think is possible for India, right? Like there are certain perceptions that we have about India कि सब कुछ ऐसे slow चलता है. Not a lot changes in a while, but we'll try to bust those myths and we'll try to also tell a different perspective of India, where India is doing absolutely amazing and where India is like creating new benchmarks for other countries. So, yeah, I would like to start with your understanding of the recent fad of all these startups, and why do you long on India?
So short answer is the sheer potential. So basically, India is at stage where it is ready for disruption, right? There are a lot of problems that are ripe for solving. So unlike other countries like US or the West per se, uh, they are solving problem which are not first degree. They are already solving problem. They have basically solved things like education or transport or payments. But India, with its youth and the kind of infrastructure it have, these all sectors are ripe for disruption. So,
Mhm.
being a young country, as well as people are just beginning to, in India, realize what things could happen, what things could do, especially the youth. So, India is probably the youngest country. I'm not sure, probably in top five at least, I must say. And
I'm sure that would be the case.
there are a lot of problems that needs a solution, and finally the infrastructure is just about mature. Key Now there is a real chance we could actually solve them. So you see all these companies and startups coming up at a breathtaking pace. In the last 2 years probably we have seen what 10 to 15 unicorns, startups turning
No,
into
maybe
unicorns.
this year alone we could have seen like 20 or
Oh,
so. So
yeah. So that is such wonderful thing for a country like India, and it is a good time we are alive.
yeah, I also think on the same lines. I also think certain things changed. So it all began from 1991, I guess, जहाँ पर we had this revolution जहाँ we removed this license Raj and
Yeah.
sort of made our economy a little bit liberal. I would not say like it's completely liberal, but we started moving towards free markets and stuff. वहाँ से are biggest startups, I guess, two or maybe more than two, Wipro also, like TCS, Wipro, Infosys, ये सब
Infosys.
companies
Yeah.
वहाँ से started हुए. So I think Infosys का boom was one of the things which made Bangalore a hub for tech, and
Yeah. Y2K
once
happened
Bangalore
then.
became that, and then do you realize that if multiple people who are super talented come in like just 1 square kilometer or maybe one conference,
Think
a
things
lot
things
of
about
good
the things.
things come up, right? So I think that was one reason, uh, because Infosys came up, it sort of indirectly benefited other people. A
Yeah.
lot of people
So
work together, even maybe in Infosys, and they realize that hey, what the heck are we even doing? We can probably solve something using the same thing, same lines of code, and like revolutionize our industry.
So what really happened is India had two really important things after liberalization in 1991, 92. So India has people who understand English, like a certain degree of people who understand English, and they're good at maths. So
Hmm.
the whole service sector was imported sort of to India, right? And
Mhm.
Bangalore happened to be that place where there were the people who understood software to some degree, and frankly there was cheap labor. So Bangalore sort of become the place, as you mentioned. There were a lot of people who were willing to do the job and the same place. So Infosys and these companies are in some sense the pioneers. I mean, we don't call them startups now, but these companies begin
But
the
they
trend.
are.
And yeah, they are. uh, and then the Y2K happened. So that whole date change thing in 1999
Hmm.
2000, that really
Hmm.
boomed the ecosystem. So Bangalore was the place.
Also, one more thing which comes to my mind right now is we really don't appreciate the fact that um, we were nowhere in the service sector, to be honest. Like, all we did was agriculture. We still do a lot of agriculture. Almost 50% of the population does agriculture. You can argue that it doesn't like, contribute that much to the GDP, but end of day, 50% of Indians are doing agriculture. Uh,
Yeah,
at the same time, we don't realize that this service boom might have also come from uh, the fact that uh, the tech support ecosystem that got built in India. So even if you think of it as just a learning thing for a person, if they get into like tech and then they start exploring other avenues, they know that these companies are doing certain things which my kids can also do, and then they give their kids the required
kind of
education, and
education.
then yeah, and I sort of believe that this they most of the people in West sort of make fun of Indians as the IT support people,
Yeah,
but I think somewhere that thing was actually helpful to India rather than
yeah.
doing something bad. So also at the same time, if you think about it, startups have just become like, as you said, we don't call Infosys a startup, even though it's going to touch
Yeah,
I think
it already
it
touched probably
recently
100.
touched
Yeah,
100 billion
billion market cap dollar.
MCAP. Yeah.
Yeah,
And which is amazing, right? You have all these
amazing.
companies like Apple who are in trillions of dollars, 2 trillion, 3 trillion, they're touching 3 trillion mark, I guess. And we have a company in India which which sort of started uh, way after Apple did, and uh, in a country where you don't have a lot of people working in tech, and they have gone like 10 billion, 100 billion dollar valuation, which is I think really amazing. But still,
So
the fact that I want to highlight here is we never called it a startup. What do you think the term, when do you think it became relevant in India, and what are
I
the pioneers?
probably, as far as I remember, InMobi was the first sort of startup that they forayed into mobile message advertising. So startup as a term itself came to India very late. So the tech bubble happened in US, and after a lag of 3-4 years, so we just began to see these companies in terms of startup. Initially, we used
Hmm,
to see things in terms of services and businesses. So
hmm,
it is a pretty recent phenomena. It's just been a decade. We have been seeing this word startup or entrepreneur in media, and the fact is they're finally able to get that sort of validation or acceptance in the societies as okay, this is also cool. This is not. This is obviously very risky, but at least now they do not reject it on the face value, the person being doing a startup. So this is really a transformational change in terms of people's mentality. So there was a time when
hmm.
we didn't even recognize these people who were entrepreneurs or engaged in this. These were very risky avenues for your career and were not thought of as sustainable. But we have come a long way from that point.
Um, yeah, I mean, if you think about it, just going back a bit, and you can trace that in Indian people's DNA also. How many people invest in stocks compared to USA? Almost nothing, right?
Yeah,
What 2-3% people are actively or passively investing. Uh, Compare that to USA, where 50% people are doing that, and that shows you the uh, And at the same time, we hold a lot of gold, and it's not like people don't understand the value of compounding and all. They do invest in real estate. They do invest in gold. They do know that values go up in some time, but all they want is the stability. They don't want to take risk
Yeah.
essentially. Uh, the fact that only 1 to 3% people invest in stocks leaves very little room for people to have that sort of acceptance where someone is going out and saying that, hey, I will be starting a company and I don't care if it runs in loss for next 20 years or so. I know that this thing is going to be useful and I'm just going towards it.
Okay. I think it probably just a cultural thing. India as a society itself is risk averse, I would say, because we sort of want to preserve things. It is same in education, right? We want stable career options or career tracks or educational tracks for our children. So that's why our country is a country of engineers. No matter people like it or not, but the parents, some sort of way, have this thought in the back of their mind ki being an engineer or being a doctor or being in these professions would set you for life. But now
Actually,
things
like
are
Malavian.
changing, norms are
Right.
changing. So as you said about gold, it's it's like India always understood the power of money, but it's like they were never taking a real action to unlock it. Like you said, in US economies, 50% are investment. That is a huge number, and we don't stand even close to it. But now with the coming of startups and this whole information boom, now everything is accessible to you.
Hmm.
This whole information is creeping in, and people are now realizing that wealth creation is not taboo. I mean, it's you could actually pursue it. You could actually unlock wealth, and slowly, and probably we need more intervention into it, and we need a, you know, it should happen at a faster pace. That people should come into financial markets and invest, but it would happen. I mean, if you see the culture nowadays, at least in the age bracket of 20 to 40, people are really understanding the power. And I mean, COVID and this whole stock market frenzy recently in the last 2 years really, I mean, changed everything. The Robinhood happened, retail investors on Zerodha and everything. They just spiked up. So, I mean, people will realize at some point of time, and probably it might need to happen early, but it would happen.
Yeah, I mean that's precisely why we are also late to this whole fad, right?
Yeah.
In You see, Apple. I have this. I follow a account on Twitter which supposedly shares old email threads from old companies about certain things they do. And I
Okay.
saw an email thread about Larry Page talking about acquisition of YouTube for
Oh,
something like 10 to 15 million dollars because they recently got a funding of $5 million, and that was sort of very old. Like at that particular point of time when they were doing that in India, you wouldn't even think of having something on online. I don't think I even had like a computer at
internet.
my home at that
Yeah, yeah.
point of time. Like leave
So
alone
first,
internet. I'm just saying, even if I could just go and like use the computer as it is, I didn't had that option. uh, I don't understand why it was so late in India. I sort of don't know the reasons to that. But certainly that's why the fad of startups became sort of delayed in our country.
so what I think is it is step-by-step process, right? So for startups, the tech startups to be there in any country, you need to have certain infrastructural requirement beforehand. So it's like you need access to market, you need sort of tech infrastructure and people to support it. So personal
Mhm.
computing itself came very late to India. Like, I'm just guessing, it probably came after, because it came into US properly in 80s and 80, 85 and 90, and then it became mass by 2000, and then the US had this tech startup bubble in 2000. So we were not even there at that scene. uh, and on the other side,
But do you realize it was sort of Apple who brought
personal
uh,
computing.
personal computers? even though a lot of other companies tried, but they never
Right.
nailed the product, and hence not a lot of people use personal computers. But if you think about it, Apple is a startup. You can't really blame computers for not having a startup, right? Apple was funded by venture capitalists, the likes of Sequoia. Uh,
Yeah.
I I believe like Sequoia started funding Indian startups way later than what they have done in US.
So
Or we
it's
never
it's
saw
probably
Sequoia in India.
it's probably due to the fact that the startup, what a startup actually is, there is an idea which is a very risky endeavor, and there are very few chances to succeed. So for a startup or a team to carry that idea, there needs to be financial backing, which was aptly provided by VCs in US. So the VC culture itself came very late to India. So VC thing started in 1960s in US. It became popular
Hmm.
with Sequoia, Vanguard, and all these groups in 1970s or 80s. I don't know. So it happened with that Fairchild, Intel, the treacherous eight, if you might have heard, after they discovered the semiconductor transistor,
Hmm. Hmm.
William Shockley and all, and then they kind of open all these companies, Cleaner and Perkins. But the VC itself came late to India. So as I'm telling, in 2003 or probably two, we had one of the first few VC sort of setups in India, and for the first time, India had sort of people who could invest, right, in
Hmm.
startups. So
I also think I have a very different thought in mind. You can trace back the VC culture of US to like very like
yeah,
maybe hundreds of years back. Think of it like this, right? If you know the fight between uh, uh, what Tesla did, right? He basically wanted to have this alternating current way of life.
yeah,
He didn't had the money. You have to realize that he didn't had the money. He had backings of several industrialists who were hoping to produce these AC equipments if Tesla had succeeded. So uh, you see, a lot of inventions in US took place because of people were funding those scientists, and that's precisely
yeah.
what VC is.
VC
While we
is
consider them as scientists, those were the inventions of those times. Now we are inventing something else. We are inventing maybe electric cars. Maybe we are inventing reusable rockets. Uh, we just don't happen to consider Elon Musk a scientist, but end of day, I think what he's doing is very
innovator.
new to this world, right? That's precisely what Tesla was doing some years back, and he had a backing, a private backing. Of this blame has to go to the British people who colonized us, and
Yeah.
uh, we ended up having an ecosystem where we're just fighting for freedom and we're not thinking of inventions or
So
anything. And that's the another reason why our education is so messed up, because uh, when we want some funds, we just go and look up to the government. We never think of a private person funding us and we creating something valuable out of it, and then we giving the rights to the private person to produce it and distribute it so that they also benefit. We don't follow this mutual benefit policy.
So I completely agree. I mean, so they US already comes from a capitalist mindset. I mean, wealth
Hmm.
focus. Everybody is focused on wealth. In India, till 1947, we were struggling for self-rule, and then we got independence. After that, there was a country to build, right?
Hmm.
So let's say 44 decades, 5 decades, and still it's still an ongoing process. Went into nation building, basic infrastructure, setting up roads, highways, educational institute. So
Hmm.
sort of we really never had that time. I mean, but if you look from the time frame of 2000, when personal computing and internet sort of boomed in the US and slowly made its way to India, it's a pretty fast growth in by any margin of metric, right?
And
So
I think that growth was escalated in last 5 6 years.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah, agreed.
we have absolutely seen disruptions in every possible domains in last 4 5 years. We have seen Indian companies coming up and beating US based companies to the ground. Uh, I believe a lot of that has to do with the fact that uh, we as a generation, maybe a few generations back also, have realized the fact that now we are stable. We sort of have houses to live in. We have food on table almost every day because our parents did that, and now we can take risks. And
Yeah.
uh, recently, government has done a few things. They have also realized that making a $5 trillion economy is not as easy in today's world as it was sometime back when if you don't do it, some other country might do it. And since
I
you
do
have
it.
free markets, they'll sell stuff in your country, and you really can't do anything because you signed that agreement on the WTO thing. And now you have to allow the other person to sell stuff in India at whatever cost they want to. You can shut TikTok, but you cannot shut everyone, right? So government realized that they need to have this thing running where they sort of institutionalize the support that is being provided, and they did something very interesting, which I think started all this. And sort of that's where I'm going towards UPI. And before UPI, something else also happened that we'll also discuss. But I just like to share this news which I uh, came across a few years back. PM Narendra Modi launches UPI-based mobile payment app called Bheem. Do you realize how big that was? Because a few years back, we didn't have, so we still don't have a lot of credit cards in our country, right? People don't have the uh, ease of paying everywhere as they
And
had in
banking itself is
maybe
missing. Yeah.
US. Banking was very difficult, and end of day dealing in cash is always very difficult. So that's why Flipkart came up with cash on delivery thing, which was
That
very
was so
innovative at that
India.
time.
Uh,
Yeah, and it is so India because people don't
and
trust.
everybody does it now. It was so
Yeah,
counterintuitive. So cash on delivery. How would people gonna pay for product after it's been at their door? They might just reject. But it is like the norm. I mean, uh, every company
hmm.
does it.
But
Yeah.
Flipkart also did a very great thing doing that because they built that sort of trust that you
Trust.
have
Yeah.
cash on delivery, but if you also pay before delivery, we'll make sure the thing reaches to you. And
Yeah.
that sort of trust propagated to other countries. But what I want to point out here is this was big. You don't have to have a debit card, you don't have to have a credit card in order to make a payment. You can just download something called Beam and make a payment in minutes. Um, I happened to go to US a few years back, and I realized how nice UPI was. Like I felt how US payment system was collapsing in front of Indian system, and that was all because of what UPI did. And I think UPI made a lot of things easier, right? If you think of food delivery, how quickly you can pay. The whole funnel of taking the user from the beginning to the end of the journey, payments used to be a big chunk where
Big
you would
hurdle.
redirect it to some other page. Then they would put credit card information or debit card information. They would put their card number. People also used to think even today cards are not very secure, right? If
Yeah.
they can be leaked, etc. And it was risky and it is still risky. But
So
think of UPI.
always we were always
Yeah.
afraid of the fact of payment, right?
Hmm.
So UPI made it very simple. It's like you just need a mobile, a number, and that's it. So all the sophistication associated with cards or credit cards, because people really fear. Like we are very conscious about our money as a society, as a generation itself.
and and also giving our card details to someone
Yeah,
else, it is very personal for I think
personal.
Indians. Like we don't
Yeah,
we hide our card in
trust.
a
Hmm.
yeah. So I think UPI solved all these problems, and now Zomato would be able to like take the user from deciding to what to order and to have ordered in maybe 2 minutes, and that's
Yeah.
what UPI enabled. But uh, yeah, I would come to what you think about UPI, but I again want to point out something else which led the government to creating something like UPI and made it possible for the government to do that. Uh, I don't know about you, but I used to have this phone uh, in 2014, which uh, didn't had 4G. It just supported 3G, and then it wasn't even an Android phone. Sort of, it was a Micromax phone, which had basic features. You could like surf web and sort of play some games which were inbuilt, and it was very limited. I used to had a recharge of I think 120 rupees, which gave me a GB of internet. That to 3G. I made sure that I turn off mobile data whenever I'm not using it, and I made sure that I use just as much as it is required. I never watch YouTube videos prior to
I could not
2015.
imagine those times now. I mean,
Yeah.
it is not
And this guy shows up,
happened.
says,
Yeah,
"Hey, hello, you could
it's
have
free for
free 4G
all.
internet." Yeah, you could have free 4G internet, absolutely unlimited. Use whatever the hell you want to use, and then I think dunya badal gayi.
So
Um,
Geo is sort of verbified, right? Like it's like Google karo. I mean, just Google it instead of just search. So Geo is just like that. It was so transforming. It was so overwhelming. Like it was pulling, swept off our feet. So it really changed everything. I mean, like you said, there was 100 rupees for a GB. I thought, I mean, broadband, if I'm right, 100 or more than 100 rupees for a GB
More
or
than
two.
100, more than
Yeah.
100. Like
And
you would be
now
very lucky if you have less than 100
broadband,
rupees.
yeah.
If you, yeah,
I mean, it was. It's not a boon that you could pay 100. It's like even if you could pay 100 or 200 rupees, do your city or your locality have access to that broadband connection? That was the issue.
huh.
So that is Geo really
And
changed everything. I mean,
and like within a year, I could see from myself a person who I suppose is one of those like tech savvy people. I had a computer in like very early days of my life. I started using that dongle thing. If you remember, there
yeah,
used to
yeah.
be a
Net setter.
Tata.
Yeah. Idea.
I don't even remember the
USB.
name. Yeah, multiple
Uh,
things. The USB dongle,
no,
you put
dongle.
it in and like use the internet. I picked that up when it was only available as a CDMA dongle and not even as a GSM dongle. So I think
Oh,
of myself as a very tech savvy person. Still, I was not surfing YouTube at all. And then comes this guy, and within a year, the whole country is like watching YouTube videos, right? Like
he just hooked
you
up
can just
people. I mean,
you can just see the number of subscribers of T series prior to Geo launch and post Geo launch, and like it just exploded.
it
Even the
it literally brought internet at your fingertips. I mean, so there was this a very serious disconnect in terms of connectivity as well as finance. I mean, even if you are in Bombay or let's say Delhi in a metropolitan city, the costs were very high. So internet use was restricted to, let's say, even if it was available in the first place, to a professional setting where you are using it to derive some profits out of it running a business, or if you are really doing financially well. So it was never for an entertainment thing or for exploration. It was a need you need to do. I mean, there should be a use case,
yeah,
there should be a need statement when you could do it. But now, I mean, everybody is on internet.
I never
For
turn my mobile data off for a
yeah,
minute.
yeah,
I could
that used to
never
be a thing,
imagine
right?
doing that 5 years back. Yeah,
That used to be a thing that you need to religiously shut down your internet, like mobile data. I mean, so you could say on internet. Like I remember before Geo, there was internet. So at night, I mean, you just could not forget to switch off the data. I mean, because that was like a sin if you committed sin, because it was a ritual, everybody does it. But now if anybody switch off data, I mean, like, what
who
are you
are you?
doing? uh,
Yeah.
yeah, so
And I think
it's a
this
lot of
is
change.
what enabled the government to go
Yeah,
with Digital India. It pushed other competitors as well. Like
yeah,
Airtel was very skeptical of all this. Like,
yeah.
इतना
So
सस्ता मत
if
करो
you
यार.
look now, telcos, Indian telco is the most competitive telco probably in the world, telco space. And as you
Hmm.
said, government was able to propel, this was the fuel that was needed in the first place. I mean, for tech startups to be there needs to be internet. So I mean, startups would eventually boom in India, but Geo basically changed the timeline, right? I mean, probably if Geo would not happen, we would be seeing this startups, unicorns, probably, I don't know, 10 years down the line or 8 years down the line. But I mean, Geo brought future now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I also remember there was something called Tata Docomo which I got, and
Yeah.
they revolutionized this calling thing. So earlier it was like per minute based
Per minute charge.
charges, and then
Hmm.
Docomo said no, like we'll do it per second. You talk for 30 seconds, we're gonna charge you 30 seconds, not per minute.
Yeah.
And that seemed like a very big revolution to me. So like I was very happy having a Tata Docomo SIM, and then suddenly Reliance Jio came up and like killed Tata Docomo. There's no Tata Docomo
Everybody, I
anymore.
mean, it
Yeah,
forced Idea and Vodafone to have a merger, right? I mean,
yeah. What more can you expect?
yeah. So, and it's because I mean, Geo, because Reliance doesn't have that baggage, right? Airtel and everybody have invested in 3G technology a lot, the GSM cellular network. And
Hmm.
Reliance had no, after, I mean, Mukesh Ambani and Ambani split like probably 7 or 8 years back. Reliance doesn't have a footing, the Mukesh Ambani led Reliance in telco. So they
Yeah,
were like all in. So, I mean, he lost a lot of money. I mean, it was obviously loss leading strategy. And I don't know, probably they turned profitable in a last year or so, but they had no investments. I mean, they were fresh to the space and they were like, it is ready for disruptions. They're already taking higher margins, all these existing players, and this just changed it. So at the time, if I could remember, now the rates have increased, but at the time, probably India has the cheapest data ever.
it still
Probably,
has.
oh, it
It
is still
still
is. Yeah,
has. Yeah.
nice.
That's what I'm showing. So it's still the cheapest at less than 10 cents in
Oh,
US.
nice.
You can get a GB, and like that's that's something else, right? In US, same data you get for $8 now. Like they have come from $12 to $8 per GB.
But
We have come
that's
from
nothing.
we have
We have
come from
come.
point 0.3 to 0.09 per GB per GB cost has gone down significantly. Even China is nowhere close to India in this regards. And I think that was sort of necessary also, because now you see a lot of startups coming up who are targeting the tier three cities, tier
Yeah.
two cities, and like if you think of it from like 5 years back, you're going to start a business which is going to scale. How can you sell to tier two, tier three cities? Is that even possible? Like,
Possible.
how can you tell
That
them
was
that this
at
is
that time probably that was not even the question you could dare to ask. I mean, before Geo, it was probably settled that you could not penetrate deep into the Indian market. I mean,
hmm,
before Geo, you probably could make tech startups or tech thingies for only the cream of the cream, like the metropolitan city or
elite?
the upper elite. I mean, so
Yeah,
internet itself was elite, right? You mentioned. I mean, if you could, there were things called cyber cafes that existed in India,
exactly,
right?
exactly. I don't see
Kids,
any cyber cafe
yeah.
these days.
I mean, if somebody mentions cyber cafe, it feels so nostalgic. I mean, oh, that was a thing in the past, right? But it was 5 years, like half a decade back, right? When I was in Kota, I mean, so for my studies, so I had this feature phone just to communicate. I mean, so there was this thing, cyber cafe where people used to go play games or download forms to fill for exams. And then in 16, 17, I don't know, Geo happened and everybody was getting a free SIM with full year of free internet. I mean, there used to be towers in my locality, like Geo towers, where coaching kids from different coachings just would sit for, from morning 9 to evening 6, and they would just be there. I mean, that is extreme. But now binge watching, completely being on internet, on the social media, it's a thing, right? And this is so normalized. Like we live our lives on internet, probably because of Geo. I
I
mean,
think the recent success of Shersha, which like is sort of like
yeah,
disrupting the whole uh, Bollywood also.
OTT, yeah,
They featured it on like
yeah,
a web-based portal, not like
portal,
it never showed up in theaters, and still it was like a big hit. And I think once that happens, right, a lot of Bollywood will also realize that hey, you don't really need theater, right?
So
Like,
what essentially I think the main insight for me is the internet itself makes the distribution cost zero. I mean, in terms of content, in terms of services, but for that potential to be harnessed, there was still a barrier, that was telco. Right,
hmm,
there was a paywall for you to access that benefits of free distribution from all these companies, Google, Facebook, YouTube, and everything. There was a paywall where you need to pay a very high per GB cost of data. And Geo
hmm,
basically solved it and forced everybody else to follow suit. I mean, after you hook people on free internet and unlimited streaming, you could not just go back. It's like Kunal Shah's Delta 4 theory. I mean, it was a Delta 4 product, right? Now,
it's like opium.
yeah, people are hooked on it. I mean, it's drug. I mean, but it really solved a lot of things, and I'm grateful to Mr. Mani for the fact that he brought this, and because now all these things are possible, right? I mean, all these startups, they could be built upon this infrastructure. They really need. I mean, recently Google went down for half hour, some service shutdown. It became news. Earlier, this doesn't used to be a thing. I mean,
Hmm.
because we didn't even knew this could be a problem for us. But if YouTube is down or Facebook
Our
is
in,
down,
our
yeah,
internet was
our uh,
down.
yeah. I mean, if Google is down for half an hour, it's become a thing. Like Google is introspecting. Google is, ramping up their infrastructure.
Totally.
Such a big deal just for an half an hour. I mean, so
Like,
we have, yeah,
I also take this point that we should really appreciate what Mr. Ambani did because I see a lot of bashing coming in towards him from all sides about why internet. So why he made the internet so cheap and now he'll steadily increase cost. But you have to
yeah.
internet is so cheap and now that people are onto it, now even if you increase cost, people are getting the hang of it and a lot of these startups have come out now you can actually earn on internet without having no
Yeah.
skills, right? You can just be a Zomato delivery guy and you could earn like 16, 17,000 easily, which uh, being a poor
So
guy, it was really difficult in India. 16,000 may
internet
not seem a lot.
created jobs for you. I mean, internet provided you with things. I mean, if you just talk about gig economy, like creator economy, everything. So internet opened a whole new world where a lot of things were possible. So as you said, tier two deliveries, ed tech, everything is possible. So it basically will employ people who were earlier not able to find jobs, right?
Correct.
So
And you don't have to have a skill set
yeah,
for that.
yeah. So initially, I mean, finding a job was hard. It still is hard. But I'm saying now there are options you could explore. There are things you could try. Right? There are people you
You
could
could
reach out.
correct. Like if you were an orator earlier,
Huh.
the way you could get a job is to
Hmm.
maybe go to some
Yeah.
good news channels
Seminars.
or some
Yeah.
seminars or maybe some radio stations. But now you have like you can just do like gigs for people and earn money from whatever they give you and people do
So
that. Favor is a
the
thing in
best.
India also.
Yeah. So the best thing for me is, in any country, in any society, it always matters. I mean, the privilege you come from where you came, where you financially stand, it matters and it still matters. But internet reduced it to a lot. I mean, now if you understand the power of internet, or you could harness it to your leverage, you could really unlock possibilities. I mean, where do you stand, or where do you are currently, with the help of internet you could really change that. If that seems to be a bottleneck for you, if your, let's say, geography or your location, or if the fact that you're living in a tier 3 city earlier used to be a pain point for you not landing a job or a particular opportunity, now internet in some way probably elevated that. So that now a lot of things are possible.
I mean, you don't have to go to a tier one city to find a job these days.
Yeah,
And
job
I'm
comes to you,
sure,
I mean, in some sense.
yeah, if you are in village and you have internet, You can basically do a job which pays you like 40,000 US dollars a year, and no one will care. Like literally, no one will care. And in a village, you're not never going to spend that 40,000 USD anywhere in India. So that is
It's
something.
possible. It's theoretically, I mean, really possible.
It happens. I know people
Yeah,
who are like living in
yeah,
little
I know.
villages and
Hmm.
doing jobs which pay more than what I get and more than what my friends get who are living in maybe Bangalore, Hyderabad. Uh, I mean, people, COVID again, we think of COVID as a very bad thing. It is a bad thing. It has done a lot of bad to the society, but at the same time, it has also made this a very uh, so uh, people have come to the fact that you can live in a tier two city and that's fine.
That's fine.
That's not
Yeah,
a bad thing.
yeah.
And
That's
slowly,
not a bug. That is a feature. Yeah,
yeah, that's not a bug. That is a feature. That's what PM says. so,
yeah,
so what this will also I think enable is how our uh, how our whole the startup economy is now going from tier one to more of like tier two, tier three cities. You see, a lot of hyper local tier two startups are coming up.
yeah.
Those are the solutions for tier two when people were living in tier one. People living in tier one understood startups and then they thought of their hometowns and said, hey, this is a
This
problem in
is
my
possible.
hometown. Let's solve it.
Yeah,
But now people are living in their hometowns, living at their
it's solving.
hometowns, and now they can clearly see more problems in their respective cities, which are not there probably in Bangalore or Hyderabad. And now they can solve it for their city and they will get the audience they need because so many people have internet and so many people get the access. Uh,
Yeah. So
Startups like
just a
Dukan,
little,
Khata Book.
no, just a little information. The Zoho, Sridhar Vambu, the founder of Zoho, he's basically operating the whole company from his village. he
Yeah,
he made
and
a
think of it.
he made a conscious choice. I mean, I read it on probably LinkedIn or something. He made a real conscious choice to move back to his city, and Zoho is a pretty big company. It's already a unicorn. I mean, way past that.
Well,
He
it's
made
a
a,
unicorn which is like bootstrapped, so you
yeah,
cannot really
that
compare it
is,
with a
yeah,
VC funded
normal
unicorn.
VC
It's like
funded, yeah,
if it was a
yeah,
VC funded company, maybe like 10 billion, 20 billion, it would have it.
blown up. I mean, so he made a conscious choice, and it is possible solely because we have that infrastructure,
Hmm.
which is possible in a country. So it is very, very
Which is
exciting. I mean, very exciting.
which is true. And these days you have all of these things coming up. Uh, Government's running Startup India program, where I live in a tier two city and I have incubator probably 5 kilometers from the place where I live. 5 kilometers in a tier two city. I can just go and pitch them, and if they like, they'll fund my idea. It has to be for a tier two city, but hey, end of day, I can get some capital even in a tier two city in 2021. Could I imagine this happening in 2015 or 2016? No, not at all. You you know, Money coming in tier two cities is completely different,
Yeah.
and
So
that too
what is
coming from government
really
is like,
positive is finally the government itself understands that India is a very big country. I mean, we are over a billion people already, right? So we need solutions in large number and at a very fast pace. So we need these startups who are disrupting and they're playing a $1 billion game or targeting Bangalore, Delhi, or metro cities. But at the same time, we need local fixes, temporary fixes, long-term fixes for different groups of people. So government really wants, I mean, or finally understands, which is probably reflected to their policies of these startups incubators, and as you mentioned, your city also, and government understand that we need a lot of people to start up or start solving problems, become entrepreneurs at very fast pace, because there is a lot of work to do at our hand. I mean, we need to solve a lot of problems. So that is
you
why
wait you wait for a year and the same product shows up from US, maybe
yeah,
China or maybe Japan. You don't have that leverage, right? If you don't have the first mover advantage, then you lose that.
yeah,
So I mean, the companies who are in US, etc., they have still just seen what tier one of India has to offer because they
Yes.
don't really recognize the potential of tier two and tier three. What we want to realize is that most of the population actually lives in tier two, tier three, and not in tier one. So
So
if
in
you
the
want to get the economy of scale,
hmm,
and if you are able to build a profitable model, you getting success in tier two, tier three these days is far greater than tier one because hey, you don't this the argument that people in tier one are more tech friendly is no longer true because everyone uses a
yeah,
mobile these days. Everyone is on
yeah,
Facebook. Even a farmer, my even the person who comes to deliver milk at my place might be on Instagram. Like it's not a big
you
deal
never know.
these days, right?
So the fact is, US market in terms of reach or penetration is already saturated. India tier one is about to be at that junction. Now, if you want, like, the startups as of now are building for, like, let's say 100 million Indians, the top 100 million. Now there is whole this theme of build for Bharat going on. Every
Uh,
startup, build for Bharat, the next billion users is going on because you have emptied the tank already. Everything is been probably reached to tier one or will going to. So the next profits or the next money or the next subscription is gonna come from a tier two or tier three city. So you better be there. I mean,
and
and
people have
you,
money.
yeah, yeah, people have, and they are pretty generous with it. So in US or in other economies, so in one sense, population, the plenty of it is probably working in favor of startup
Hmm.
ecosystem because US can't do that. They're not running off to countryside and building startups, but in India you can because a lot of people live in tier 2 tier 3 cities, right?
Like
And a lot of
you
solutions are
think of
needed.
you think of your startup and think that hey, I built for 20 to 40-year age group,
Hmm.
and then you realize okay, only 1% of people are picking it
Yeah,
up than what I imagined, and then you realize that 1% is so
big.
big as
Yeah,
compared to something like 50% in US.
that is
You'll
so.
get 50% in US, and then you'll think okay, I need to ramp up my numbers. You'll get like 5% in India, and then you'll say okay, I am already pretty big, and that's what
So I
precisely
was,
Facebook
hmm,
does.
yeah. So
So
I was reading this book on Facebook, inside Facebook, and it mentioned very interesting point. So when Facebook was probably in the building stages, when the creating the product, Facebook always said they had a billion users, but those billion users came from India, right? India made them, give them authenticity or the credibility to say that, could really say that 1 billion people. I know they were not the high paying customers or they were not providing revenues, but it's like Facebook was never gonna have 1 billion users if it weren't for Asian countries, because there
if
is
it
the mass
weren't for
population.
Mukesh Ambani, perhaps.
Yeah, yeah, perhaps,
And that's why
perhaps.
precisely they fund Geo. They have invested in Geo
Yeah,
because they realized how critical that was for even
yeah.
them to have
So
that scale of users on their platform.
India and South Asia, are the next place that's going to be disrupted because, as I said, Europe and US, the main problems. The first problems have been solved. So it's the next economies of scale will be gonna be in India or probably gonna be in Indonesia. So that is why you're seeing such frenzy. The such funding. Like you open LinkedIn. A funding of $2 lakh or 200K is so normal.
It's
So
less.
yeah,
I like we consider $100,000 funding as like okay, we got some
okay,
pennies.
seed
Yeah,
money. Yeah,
not even seed, dude. Like
yeah.
people raise seed after
And
YC. YC gives them one twenty
I
five
see.
thousand already,
Yeah.
and then they raise seed after that. And think of it like we are getting the same amount of funding as in people get in US, and the expenditure of Indian companies is lot lesser than companies of US, right? Like you could literally use the amount in much better way if you're in India because you have to pay very less salaries, almost tenth of what US pays, I guess, and you could have 10 employees at the cost of what a US counterpart would have for the same funding. And that sort of gives you another advantage, the pace that you could move, right? A
Yeah.
US team at the same funding will have 5 employees, you would have 50. Imagine the compounding that will happen in every month with those 50 employees, because you could already hire people in growth. You could already do some marketing with it. Ad revenues are, uh, since Facebook and Google, they don't earn a lot from India because the ads are so cheap. And again, ads are so cheap, so you could reach to more number of people as compared to in US. It
So
makes
it's
it is starting to make a lot more sense to start up in India as compared to start up in maybe US or some other country.
So I mean, I'm finding it amusing. At the start of this show, we said that we were referred to as the IT guy, Infosys, right? I mean, and the
Yeah.
joke was they were making fun of us. So now I think it's
Joke
probably the
was
joke
on
is on
you.
them. So
Yeah.
probably the joke is on them. So the tables have turned, and I mean, yeah. So that's pretty good thing. I mean,
But I also want to bring this very critical point that I often talk to with a lot of my friends and people who think very similar to me. Uh, we both have been from sort of what is called the cream institutes in India. Like
yeah,
there's a hype around IITs, and the hype mostly after getting into IIT, we realized that it's just about network, the quality of people that is around you. But be very frank about it. What was your perception before going to IT? Was it people? Because for me, it was mostly people saying that you get a lot of big package if you go to IT. You get good placement. It was people never say anything about having good network or having good peer group, uh, which if you think about it is very deteriorating, because we before even stepping into IIT, which is supposed to be a very good institute, you get like good people around you, and having good people around you means that you can basically start really good things. If you ever start up, probably the co-founder would be from IIT or wherever you
yeah,
studied from, and then we instill this thing on the people that hey, you have to get placements to get the validation, because all we care about is placements. Um, you can just look at the placement stats of IIT Bombay, right? This is big number. 80, 85, 90% people getting placed is like
yeah.
90% people getting pushed into doing something which, uh, you
And
know,
I mean, probably the remaining, which doesn't show in graph, probably went for higher studies. So,
yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
yeah,
And after going for higher studies, they realize that jobs are not served on silver plate
plate,
with a
yeah,
silver
yeah,
spoon like they do in India. You have
India,
to search for jobs. You have to go talk to people. You have to go network. You have to really put in efforts to find a job. Whereas in India, if you do average, like just do whatever the college tells you to do, and just go and sit for that one interview, which the college has set up for you. You don't even have to put efforts to it, which the college has set up for you. Just go and sit there with a nice tie and a blazer, you get a job, dude. Like, and that is like that is easier than getting into IIT. And
yeah. So I
that,
think the whole problem with this is we have set up this process like your education is solely warranted or is for you to get a job. I mean, job is the end goal. I mean,
hmm,
to earn money, job is the end goal. This whole notion is what's wrong, according to me. Uh, so, I mean, education should be, in some sense, you get an education and now you decide what to do with it. It's not like you
correct.
already pre-decided. I want to do a job, so that's why I need an education. I mean, like, you need an education and then decide what you're going to
So
do with it.
the point of education is because you don't know certain things, you go and
Yeah,
you start knowing certain
learn them,
things, and
explore
then
them.
you
Yeah,
you understand. Okay, these are the gaps which I can fill in. These are the gaps which I cannot fill in. And then you sort of understand. Okay, I can do this. I cannot do this. But what happens is, and what has happened to both of us as well, कि यार इधर जाओगे तो ये वाली जॉब सबसे बढ़िया होती है, एंड दैट्स वेयर वी गो. वी डोंट इवन थिंक कि हम वो 4 years में क्या कर रहे हैं.
yeah,
Of course it helps a lot. I'm not contradicting myself by saying कि college education is not good, but uh, college
But
education is
the
very important.
motivation, I
But you
mean,
have to get something out of it, right?
yeah.
You cannot be like, I just completed my college for that one day where I can just sit for placements and get a job. And
I mean,
that's
the
what we have been
only
forcing,
takeaway from college could not be that X lakh
a job.
job. Yeah,
Yeah.
there it should be there, but there should be other things to it. I mean,
I mean, you should be making a choice.
yeah,
It should be like,
conscious
I ha-
choice. Yeah,
I had this on plate, this on plate, this on plate, and then I chose to go for a job because I
job,
felt like this was the best thing to do right
best
now.
thing for me. Yeah,
What happens is exactly the opposite. There's just one option, that is job, because the placement cells force you to take that job, because otherwise, I don't know. I mean, you won't get the degree, or the thousand things they put up,
I mean, the
and then
society would not let you live. As simple as
also,
that. I mean,
yeah, your friends will have, since, and then this is there also, right? All of your friends have taken a job, and now what can you do
yeah.
if you want
I
to hang
mean,
out with
you
them? They're
feel
going to
something
spend.
missing. There is FOMO, right? I mean, it's like if everybody around you is getting a job, everybody is in some way settled as per their reality, but you have not figured out. I mean, because doing anything other than job take some sort of courage or some sort of risk, because job is so settled. I mean, you get a job, there is a fixed salary coming in, you're happy. So if you want to move out of that reality, you want to do something different, you need to have some guts and say ki, okay, job is good, job would probably keep me up and running, but what I think is I should do this, probably a startup, probably some other career options or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, so the fact is that a lot of people want to do startups. Okay, it's not
Yeah,
like people want to do business. We essentially come from a very business oriented society where, you know, lots of our families are doing business. They might be very small, like running a
yeah.
shop, or they might be very big, like running a company. But end of day, anyone is
In some way we are engaged.
in some
Yeah,
way we are related to business. But when it comes to when we get a good education, we don't really use it for doing the business well. Like, we just go and take up a job, and then once you're there in that vicious cycle, a very few people come out of that. And that is precisely why the number of people who started up early on is very less in India. Like,
yeah.
people go and um,
Well, it was very hard. I mean,
how many people do you find? Mark Zuckerberg started so early. I don't know. I just started to see people like that now. I don't even know someone from my generation who did that. I see a 13-year-old kid named Gajesh. He has started a Ethereum based company. And that is really cool. I couldn't even think of doing something like that myself in India, which Mark Zuckerberg did a lot of years back in US. But that is just coming up,
yeah, it's
and
coming, and it is
placements are
good thing, right? I mean, finally, all this startup buzz, these opportunities, finally in some way breaking this whole nexus, sort of nexus. I
that
mean, yeah,
that's how
encouraging.
inventions happens, right? Like,
Yeah,
if you think of it, we see a lot of scientists coming out from India, but we don't see a lot of inventions coming out from India. That is a hard fact to digest, that we don't invent a
yeah,
lot, because this has never been our culture.
culture.
this
Yeah.
is this is just
And
coming
that
up,
is
and then,
so annoying. I mean, because we have that potential in the first
yeah.
place. It's not like we don't have that potential. So
Correct. That
yeah,
potential is, so the highest potential people go into sorts like IITs. I'm not saying all of them, but definitely some of them. And those some of the people who have the highest potential go into like all these prestigious institutes. Rather than making them inventors, those institutes end up making them someone who don't has to think. Like, you
yeah,
just go from 9 to 6 and that's it. And then how do we even think of getting more inventions from the country? You flaunting the placement numbers in front of websites.
media. Yeah.
It's sort of very weird for
I mean,
premier institutes to be doing that. I understand why the smaller institutes do that, but we really have to change from placements to something like job fairs where people would voluntarily get jobs and they would not be forced to take jobs.
I
My
mean,
point is
because
not that
landing
taking
a,
jobs is
yeah,
bad, but the fact that forcing someone to take a job is bad.
I mean, because it's like, so there is a thing called placement season in, let's say,
Yeah,
every IIT, as I know. So
yeah, yeah.
what it just basically build a system, right? I mean, so it becomes a, I mean, automatic reflex thing. Like third year comes, the company's coming for intern. What you gonna do? You're gonna sit for internship season. In the fourth year, the company's coming for placement. What are you gonna do? You're gonna sit for placements. Instead of this, if the system would have been like, we are gonna just teach you the skills, we are gonna provide you the courses with the best possible ways you could learn and things, and now go figure. If that would have been the case, that is probably in US, right? So it would really make you work for it. It would
Hmm.
force you to sell yourself, to present yourself, and it would hone your other skills, right? I mean, so in, if you make this play, if we make this structure, your hard skills as well as soft skills would need to be developed in order for you to get the job, and then your
Correct.
personality will become an all-round personality. So this needs to come from the top institutes. I mean, they should lead the way, right? I mean, if they take all the credit of being the lead institutes of our country, they should really go about and change that. I mean,
Because I think we have been fortunate enough that at least IIT Mandi has this thing where if you start up, they allow you to sit for placements the second year again
yeah,
because you can sort of mitigate the risk. But uh, the fact that we think so narrowly when it comes to doing something different, like making terms with the fact that okay, I'm not going to earn for next 1 year or 2 years, is is sort of weird for me to digest. And then what happens is that a lot of these people uh, they end up going into that vicious job cycle, and then they realize, okay, I need to pursue a different degree in order to
yeah.
do something else, and then they go for masters, which of course is not, the masters ecosystem is terrible in India, and you don't have good institutes for your masters in India, right?
So the
So you of course
problem, yeah,
go to US, and then once you are into US, then of course you
yeah,
start up.
yeah.
I know a lot of people who have gone to US for their masters, and then they realize, okay, I know I know this problem and I can solve it, and then they start up
The very
there
fact
rather
that
than in India.
you need a master's degree to kind of do something new. I mean, people in India view masters as their redemption. I mean, so I'm
Hmm.
stuck at a promotion or I'm stuck at certain level in my professional career, and let me go do a master's. So
Hmm.
it would change things for me. I mean, yeah, it solves the purpose for some kind, but this should not be your motivation in the first place,
Hmm.
right? I mean,
Hmm.
you're a software engineer for a very long time, and now you say, okay, let me do an MBA, and then you completely change everything. I mean, in principle, I have no issue with it, but as a culture itself, it does not
It's
bode well
demotivating.
for, yeah, yeah. So
it's it's sort of that we don't uh, we have recently started celebrating founders who take risks.
yeah,
Think of it like if US did not celebrate Steve Jobs or Larry Page, they didn't pay any attention to sorts of Google or Apple, what would have happened to this world? We have been still
so far
hunting.
behind. I mean, yeah,
So I think that has to come, and I believe that will come
probably
because
you would still be on your feature phone struggling with Tata
yeah,
Docomo, but I
yeah,
mean, I'm
that,
glad it is
that is
not the
definitely
case.
possible.
Yeah.
And
So
still a lot of countries struggle with that even these days.
yeah, I mean,
We have been fortunate to be living in a country where we get so much access. I recently realized that the connection for the broadband that I have, the Geo fiber connection that I have, provides me with 3,000 GBs of internet, and
oh,
3,000 GBs is like impossible for even a US person to
I
digest.
mean,
How
yeah,
can you use that internet? And
yeah,
then that leads to all of these things like Sher Shah coming in on like
yeah,
Prime Video or
OTT,
something.
yeah,
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 it's coming in on OTT. That means people are understanding the value. Think of NFTs. Um, I opened WazirX NFT. I would like to show you the page. Uh, and I recently saw something crazy. Like I never imagined that it would be there. Ritviz is selling NFT for whatever he does.
Oh, Amitabh Bachchan recently launched an NFT, right? I mean, it's it's going mainstream. I mean, so if
Yeah, but think of how is it even possible in a country like India? That is just possible because of what these startups have done, what WazirX have done. Uh, how common is blockchain to a lot of people in India now? How
yeah,
common is Bitcoin for a lot of people these days? Uh, I mean, uh, we don't see Bitcoin billionaires in India just because of the reason that we didn't know about internet in 2012, right? We just picking it up, and the pace at which we are picking it up is as far as what the US is picking it up with. So it's amazing. I can see so many NFTs, so many people working on Bitcoin, Ethereum, so many people working on some other things like Cardano or something.
oh,
I mean,
nice. You have Bharat Punk. I mean, it recently sold like Cyberpunk, right? So in India, they also copied it. I mean,
okay, interesting. I mean, I don't know how how big is this market yet, but it definitely seems like people are picking it up. I recently saw teenage kids, purchasing NFTs and holding it on.
I recently
So
read a news. I mean, some kid, probably I don't know, not from India, created NFTs of whales, uh, weird whales, and it sold for more than 2 crores. And he was probably just 13 years old kid. And I mean,
exactly right.
if this is a
Uh,
fad, I mean, this is a probably we could still classify it as a fad. I don't know if it's gonna stay, but it is one one crazy fad. I mean, among all other fad, this whole NFT thing where you could digitally there is a value to a digital sort of thing. It is crazy. I mean, and there is real money involved in it. I mean, there are dollars being exchanged, the money being put. I mean, so
Dude, look at this guy. This is what I was telling you about. He's just 13-year old. He's the founder of Govt Finance, which is an NFT platform, which is a DeFi platform. I don't even think a lot of people from my age know what decentralized finance is and how
is
does it operate. And this is a 13-year-old kid who probably won't even ever have to go to a college because he
yeah.
he knows already what
What they never
sells.
teach.
I mean,
Yeah.
this is just crazy, and he has a coin
So
also for.
it's just coming back to the earlier point. We said ki we need to go to a college for a job. I mean, if he is going to already discover sources of wealth or, I mean, money, by the age he is probably 15 or 14, he's already earning probably right now. Why would he care to get a degree? I mean, a structured
Dude,
degree.
Gutch
He doesn't
Finance
need it.
runs for 5 years, and if it runs well, it is going to be a unicorn. 5 years later, we are going to see crypto unicorns. We have already seen a marketplace being a unicorn,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
On D6. Yeah.
Yeah, CoinDCX was a unicorn, but again, that is just a marketplace. But what he's doing is like deep tech.
And yeah.
He's
Yeah.
doing NFT and DeFi stuff, which is still not there. I believe 5 years down the line, these are the sort of companies which will be, in news for being unicorns. And in 5 years, he would be 18. Like not at 18, I entered
I
college,
mean,
right?
probably he might turn into a unicorn and he might not be able to register a company on his name. I mean,
Yeah,
that would
that is possible.
be
That is possible.
that would
That
be
is possible.
one hell of a thing to happen. Yeah. Yeah.
And th- this is what I believe is going to
Yeah,
be the
this is the
future in
potential of
India.
India. I mean, we have come full circle. So this is the potential of India. From Infosys, I mean, Gaj Finance, 13-year-old kid doing DeFi and
And
disrupting
I am super.
people. Excited, yeah.
I no, I didn't. I just want to meet this guy. I want
Uh,
to congratulate him for whatever he's
uh,
doing. And I mean, I'll be very happy to, work for Gush Finance if I get a chance someday.
I mean, we
You
are
know,
talking about being long on India. He's already doing things and proving what we are going to
dude,
discuss.
he
I mean,
understands compounding. He
come on.
understands decentralization at age of 13 when I
Mhm.
did not even know the spelling of decentralization. And
You
that
were
is
doing
just
Tata
fantastic.
Docomo at age 13. Sure.
Yeah, I was
So,
doing Tata Diploma at age 13.
so we have sure come a long way. I mean, it's very interesting and exciting. I mean, so if you see your daily feed, I mean, everything excites you after half an hour or 1 hour because such exciting things are happening. I mean, in crypto, in fintech, so everything is that could be disrupted is being disrupted or probably will be disrupted. I mean, there is
And
no limits to
see
anything.
his timeline, right? And this is everything post COVID. This dude, he might be attending a simple school pre-COVID, where
Yeah.
he was supposed to learn English. He was supposed to like do like division and
I mean,
find
he
what
just
is
one day he's
yeah.
like, "What should I do in COVID? Let me do DeFi," just like
Yeah,
that.
see, this is what he's talking about. He attended a webinar about Bitcoin blockchain in 2020, September 2020. He bought his first $5 worth of Bitcoin. I congratulate and I applaud his parents who gave him the $5 to
Five
invest in
dollars. I
Bitcoin at
mean,
that age. And then he started digging deep into blockchain. Learned about Ethereum, which I also long on. So yeah, go Ethereum. We are we have gone past VIP 1559. So yeah, Ethereum to 30K. Uh, long shot, but
OP
yeah.
in the
Then
chat.
he started then he started learning Solidity, and he started investing more. So uh, yeah, he started trading in like November 2020. In 2021, January 2021, he understood that hey, trading is just it's just the the tip of the iceberg. There's more to discover, and he started researching freelancing, and then he deployed the Gudge coin that I was talking about. And then here he is. He's running a company now. He joined DAOs, and he's running an NFT platform. He launched an NFT farm on Polygon and Ethereum. Kudos to the creator of Polygon. Also, if
Yeah.
you don't know, Polygon has come up from India,
Epic.
a person from India. So kudos to him too. He got registered on Proof of Humanity recently, which Vitalik talks a lot about, and I know the person who created this thing. I mean, the story of him coming from the COVID, where everything was just haphazard. Kids were confused as hell what they should do now. Some kids were like very happy that they don't really have to study now.
Go to
But
school. Yeah.
yeah, this guy just attended a webinar just out of
Yeah.
nothing, and at 13-year-old age, he's running a company now.
Gutch
And
finance. Pretty
I
cool.
don't know if this will be a success or not, but definitely one day he'll create a company that is going
My
to be a
money,
unicorn. And
my $5 are on him. I mean,
yeah, definitely. You
he
know,
will.
he already knowing what it is like to run a company at age of 13, what it is like to launch products which scale, which go into hands of customers in age of 13. I don't even know what he's going to do in age of
So I
23.
mean, this guy is this kid. I mean, is the whole manifestation of this thing why we are long on India. I mean, this shows the potential, what is
Exactly.
possible, right? So I mean, we could dedicate this show to him in some way, that he lead by example or by his action, that there are things possible in India, and we are finally gonna take charge of it, and I am gonna be there at the first position to see the disruption, and I'm gonna lead it in the first place. So
I mean, I see people in very high stature actually congratulating him for what he did. So he's getting noticed too. And
yeah.
I don't know. This can just be a FOMO that now parents say that, hey, be like Gajesh,
Okay. Yeah.
do something like him. and
he might be
that
the next
can,
Sharma Ji ka Londa. I mean,
yeah, next Sharma ji ka beta. See what Gajesh is doing, just go and do
doing.
something.
Yeah,
And I'm not saying this in terms of, that kids should start a company at 13. Like, that's not the point. But the point is that let them do what they want to do.
they want.
Like,
I mean,
don't
yeah,
push them towards getting a job when they clearly can do much better than that. Like,
yeah.
there are people who
Let them
still
realize their potential. Yeah,
correct.
basically. Yeah,
And I think we are just about to get there as a
yeah.
country.
I hope, and I'm pretty excited about it. I mean, because this is so cool, right? I mean, so much things happening around you so fast, and things are changing, and it, it excites you as well, and it makes you curious. Ki, okay, this has happened. Now, what's next? What is the next frontier, or what is the next big thing, or what is the next tech, or what is this new feature, or I mean, all these things, right? So it's pretty
Yeah,
cool, pretty cool.
people ask me all the time, why don't you go to the states or somewhere, get get a master's or something, and I give them
Things to do with your connect with India, but it is also the logical choice now. I mean, I'm not just saying
right.
because yeah, I'm not just saying because I am from India, I would come back to my country. It's not like the Swadesh thing, but there is a real possibility that there would be some real success and real, I mean, wealth unlock in India. So it makes financial sense. It makes logical change sense as well as the emotional thing. I mean, the attachment from your country. So it checks all the boxes. So why not long on India? I mean,
I mean, if I'm going to get 125K from YC, I may as well spend it in India and
I
do a
mean,
lot more than I would do in US any day.
yeah.
And I would be getting a lot more customers in India. And looking just projecting what a lot of you know just projecting how many millionaires are going to be there in India in few years. It's just an exponential graph.
And
And
you could
uh,
always take a vacation in US. I mean, that is
yeah,
always on the table. So if you want to go out, I mean, that is still an option. Yeah.
totally. Interesting. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's precisely
That's
what
it.
this show is about, and
Yeah.
we'll be keeping this open to multiple aspects of startups. I think today was just about getting the hang of how it feels
Hang
like
of it.
talking about this, and
So it
we'll
was
be
good.
coming up
Yeah.
with
So
I think we'll be coming up with much more, tailored content for
content
individual pieces in the startup
pieces.
ecosystem. Then also we might touch some Indian aspects of it. We'll also tell you how it is different in other countries. How is it? And we'll be basically talking about most of the things that one has to do to start up. I myself has been a founder once, and of course the as the data says, not all startups work, and mine did not as well. So uh, I take it as an you know uh, way to understand what others are doing at this time and maybe learn from them. And I hope this will be of a lot of use to a lot of the viewers who will be watching this video or the podcast or listening to
Sure.
this on Spotify. So yeah, we are on Spotify also. We are on Google Podcast also. So if you just want to hear the audio, we are there as well. And of course, you should definitely subscribe to the channel, hit the like button, share it with your friends so that we are getting motivated to
Use
make
the
more of
internet,
these
man.
videos.
Geo is free. So
Geo
just
is
tweet
free.
us at tag us at curiosity underscore dio, or watch us on Twitch. Anywhere. I
Yeah,
mean, the platform is of your choice. So tell us what you like, what you didn't like, what you want us to talk about, and we would
yeah,
really try and probably include that in our conversation. Yeah.
yeah. Also, you could also add some constructive comments in the video so that we know what was not right, what was not as per the mark. So we will definitely try to improve on that.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was nice.
Yeah.
Let's catch up sometime again, and
Yeah.
we'll make it a
See you
weekly
soon.
thing. So we'll let
Yeah.
you know the timings, etc. on Twitter. So make sure you follow us there. And Yeah, see you soon.
See
Good
you
day.
soon.